Now, from CBS 4 News, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Now to a special edition of Facing South Florida that explores the working conditions at Miami International Airport and one company in particular, Unsafe America.
Gente tienen una noción del aeropuerto que como es lo mejor, donde más pagan, y en realidad es una pura mentira, porque tratan a los trabajadores peor que vaya. No tengo ni palabras para decir cómo tratan a los trabajadores. Horrible.
In a city of immigrants, this is the untold story of how some believe they are being exploited in the community they now call home.
Basically, we do the dirty job for the airlines because we don't have very high level education.
Que muchas personas son nuevas aquí en el país, no conocen de las leyes, y entonces ellos se valen de eso, intimidan.
CBS Miami spent weeks interviewing workers and culling through court documents and labor records that reveal troubling allegations of mistreatment and intimidation, along with what some believe is a climate of fear that prevents workers from speaking out.
Todo el mundo tiene miedo.
People come from countries where there's communism and oppression, and to work at this airport, they're as afraid here as they are back in their home country.
The situation felt intimidating. It was shocking, and my job's not at stake.
They are MIA's forgotten workers, a CBS Miami special report. Good morning. On this holiday weekend, as we celebrate both Easter and Passover, our airports are particularly busy with people scrambling to spend time with their loved ones. Most of us move through the airport without giving much thought to those who work there. It is simply a brief stop on our way home or abroad. Nevertheless, in many ways, the airport is really a city unto itself. It has its own post office, police force, and jail. There's a barber shop and hair salon. A hotel in the center of the main terminal boasts a swimming pool. There are dozens of restaurants and shops. It even has its own light rail system. And like all cities, there are parts that are nice and others less so. Over this half hour, we'll take you to what many consider the bad part of town. Every year, more than 45 million passengers travel through Miami International Airport. No other entity in the state of Florida produces more revenue than MIA. Not even Disney World can touch the $31 billion the airport generates a year. But many airport workers do not share in that wealth. Just beyond those newly remodeled steel and glass terminals, thousands of workers toil under extreme conditions.
Sometimes I feel that they think that we are machines. I'm not human.
Esteban is a ramp worker for a company called Unsafe America. He loads and unloads bags from the plane's belly and hauls as many as 300 bags a day, with each bag often weighing between 70 and 90 pounds.
This is the schedule.
The 60-year-old Cuban immigrant shows me the schedule from the day before, where he claimed to have worked from 1 p.m. to 6:30.
When we finish one plane, there is another waiting for us. We don't have time even to drink water.
You work for 5.5 hours without any break.
Any break.
In addition to his schedule, Esteban shows us how he usually brings a bottle of water with him at the beginning of the day.
It's not enough.
Temperatures on the tarmac can easily reach 100 degrees, especially when combined with the heat of the engines.
Very, very hot. Extremely hot. And not only outside, inside the plane is very, very hot.
Workers can become dizzy or lightheaded. Some have even fainted. Many of the Unsafe employees CBS Miami interviewed complain that they did not have easy or reliable access to water.
I think that it's not human.
In November 2018, Miami-Dade Aviation Director Lester Sola received this letter detailing allegations that Unsafe workers were being mistreated. In response, county officials asked Unsafe to investigate itself in order to determine if the company did anything wrong. On February 5, 2019, Unsafe responded to Sola, saying that after conducting its own internal review, it had concluded many of the complaints by workers were not valid. Easy access to drinking water is not concern to our employee group, a Unsafe official wrote. We have implemented a process consisting of a renovated golf cart with coolers, water, Gatorade. to ensure ramp employees are hydrated at all times. Similarly, we can confirm that employees working either on the ramp or cabin take their breaks on a daily basis. Workers, however, stand by their claims, saying they have never seen a Yulin water or Gatorade golf cart, and they maintain that often their only break is at the end of their shift, after working 7 or 8 hours straight. Airlines contract with Yulin America to provide an array of services at airports up and down the East Coast, including Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Washington, D.C., and New York. At MIA, American Airlines hires Yulin to clean the cabins between flights. Delta uses Yulin employees for loading and unloading baggage. Yulin also provides various airline wheelchair and customer service representatives. Reached by phone at the company's headquarters in Miami, the CEO of Yulin America, Xavier Rebel, declined a request for an interview. "I'm not the right person to discuss this with you," he said. "I'm the CEO of the company." Asked about the workers' complaints, he said, "I believe it is false." Rebel, who became CEO a year ago, referred CBS Miami to Yulin America's parent company, Grupo Yulin. Based in Spain, Grupo Yulin also declined to respond to questions, stating in an email, "We are not going to make any statements about this." Yulin employees we spoke to describe a culture of fear and intimidation within the company. Several employees would speak only if their identities were hidden.
La razón es porque si saben quién yo soy, no va a tardar ni una semana que me saquen del aeropuerto. Yo necesito mi trabajo.
As an airport contractor, Yulin is required to pay their workers between $14 and $16 an hour under the county's living wage ordinance. And while the workers say that may seem like enough, they claim the company limits the number of hours they work to keep them from receiving benefits. They are not provided sick days or vacation time. Helene O'Brien is the Florida director of the Service Employees International Union, Local 32BJ, which is trying to organize the 2,000 Yulin workers at MIA.
If the people who are cleaning your plane, are coughing and ill, and they can't take a day off because they'd lose pay, that is concerning.
Do you feel pressure when you're sick to go to work anyway?
Yes, because I live check by check. I need to pay my bills.
A crew of 4 cabin cleaners can be given as little as 10 minutes to clean a plane. They claim that is not enough time. Yulin disagrees, stating, "Our workforce is sufficient to meet and face the demand."
You can find in the blankets blood. You can find people pee in the blankets. You can find Pampers on the floors. So just make it look nice and clean. Just a rack and that's it. You're done.
The equipment is another frequent complaint. Workers provided these pictures and videos showing what they say are the inside of Yulin's vans that carry the cabin cleaning crews to the planes. Holes in the floorboards, a roof that pours down on the workers when it rains, a broken door that has to be tied shut with a seatbelt.
Y mantenerla cerrada hasta que lleguemos al vuelo. No trabajan la mayoría de los camiones, pero no solamente eso, están minados de cucarachas, donde ahí se guarda todo para los pasajeros, o sea, para aprovisionar el vuelo, y todo eso prácticamente está infectado por las cucarachas. No podemos montar alimentos ni cartera, nada.
In its response to the aviation department, Yulin said they were increasing fumigation efforts in their vehicles. And if you look closely at this picture, you can see the bench the workers say they sit on inside the van. The bench is tied down with only a blanket.
It's not as safe in the way they're doing it.
Esteban recalled how the brakes went out on one of the vehicles used to pull the carts filled with luggage. He said he lost control, nearly running over someone on the tarmac.
It's horrible.
Is it dangerous?
It's dangerous, of course.
Yulin denies their vehicles are unsafe. In its letter to Aviation Director Sola, a Yulin executive claimed Yulin inspects each vehicle twice a day. Additionally, we have continuously passed the annual inspection by Miami-Dade Aviation Department without any findings, and we've been recognized in multiple occasions for keeping our GSE fleet in good operational condition. Yulin noted they were refurbishing their vehicles and plan to replace others in the next year. Yulin employees are not exposed to dangerous situations, the official concluded. Esteban's co-worker Ernesto recently left Yulin. When he first started working for Yulin a couple of years ago, he said he broke his ankle when his leg was crushed by a portable conveyor belt. He claims his supervisor told him to go home and see if he could come back to work in a few days.
I finished the conversation. I'm going out of the office, and another coworker told me, "Hey, you have to go to the workers' clinic." But was another coworker, no, was the supervisor told me that.
Ernesto is referring to this clinic on the edge of the airport. The clinic is under contract to handle worker-related injuries for airport workers. It also helps the insured worker file workers' compensation claims, so their expenses are covered. Ernesto said if his co-worker hadn't explained to him what to do, he would have never known to go there. It is not clear what obligation the company had to inform Ernesto of his rights. In written statements provided to SEIU, other workers claimed they were discouraged from filing claims or reporting injuries. All of the workers we spoke to said they felt powerless to demand changes.
La gente no protesta porque ya tienen miedo de cuando se refieren a los jefes, de que la próxima semana tu horario sea peor o que te den menos horas como castigo, porque protestaste o dijiste algo que no te gustaba. En conclusión, no se puede hablar.
Workers are terrified. It's a very sad thing to see. Actually, no, I'm not going to say it's sad. It's an enraging thing to see. People think the airport is like a government job, but that was maybe a long time ago. These are all outsourced, contracted out, often a very competitive, race-to-the-bottom contract type of jobs.
O'Brien says the workers feel intimidated by Yulin and afraid to join the union, and there is evidence to support those concerns. In 2018, a National Labor Relations Board judge concluded Yulin fired an employee at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport because she engaged in union activity. The judge ordered the woman to be rehired and that Yulin to cease and desist from discharging, refusing to rehire, or otherwise discriminating against employees because they engage in activities on behalf of the Service Employees International Union Local 32BJ or any other labor organization. Yulin is appealing the decision.
When the workers first started to get together and speak out about issues, one worker went and actually talked to the media, and he was fired by Yulin, like that.
In 2015, the National Labor Relations Board filed a complaint against Yulin because of the employee who was fired. As these records show, without admitting it had done anything wrong, Yulin settled the case by paying the employee more than $20,000 in lost wages. Still today, workers say they have been warned not to join the union.
Los principales que dicen que si nosotros nos unimos a la unión, después la unión va a ir a mostrarle a Yulin todo lo que hemos firmado por la unión y después todos serán expulsados. Sí, ellos dicen que se tiene manera de saber si nosotros somos parte de la unión.
Yulin is facing numerous civil lawsuits from workers who say they have been mistreated. The lawsuits, filed in both state and federal court, accuse the company of age and race discrimination. Yulin denies the claims in all of the lawsuits and is defending them in court. Perhaps the most serious cases revolve around the allegations of wage theft. Workers have staged one-day strikes and walkouts like this one in Fort Lauderdale over the issue of wage theft. In 2015, more than a dozen Yulin employees filed this federal lawsuit claiming unpaid overtime. Yulin denied the allegations and settled the case in 2016, paying more than $60,000 to the workers and their attorney. And this lawsuit, filed in March in state court, alleges that Yulin automatically deducts 30 minutes from their pay every day for a break, even on those days when they are not permitted to take breaks. When the employee complained, she said she was fired within weeks. Yulin has yet to respond to the newly filed suit.
There's the shiny outside, and then you look under the hood, and there's the human toll. And it's a toll of hardworking people from other countries that come here.
When we come back, a county commissioner goes to the airport searching for answers and is stunned by what she finds. When we return on this special edition of Facing South Florida, MIA's Forgotten Workers.